In the long and storied history of Egypt, few rulers left a mark as deep and lasting as Sultan al-Ashraf Saif al-Din Qaitbay. He was a Mamluk sultan who ruled during a time of great change and challenge from 1468 to 1496. This was the late 15th century, a period when the world was shifting. Empires were rising and falling, and new powers were emerging on the global stage. Qaitbay's reign is often remembered as a golden age, a final brilliant flash of Mamluk glory before the eventual decline. He was more than just a ruler. He was a builder, a soldier, a patron of the arts, and a man whose influence can still be seen and felt across Egypt and the wider region today. People remember Sultan Qaitbay not just for the length of his reign, which was one of the longest in the Mamluk period, but for its quality. He brought stability to a realm that was often turbulent. He managed to hold back powerful enemies like the rising Ottoman Empire and protect his lands from invasion. His name is synonymous with magnificent architecture. He commissioned so many buildings that his unique architectural style is now a recognized category. From mosques in Cairo to fortresses on the coast, his monuments stand as a testament to his vision and his desire to create a lasting legacy for his people and for himself. Why is he so important? Qaitbay's story is a classic Mamluk tale of rising from nothing to achieve the ultimate power. He was not born into royalty. He was purchased as a slave. His journey from a young boy in a foreign land to the throne of one of the most powerful empires of the time is a remarkable one. It speaks to the unique system of the Mamluks, where merit and ability could, in theory, elevate anyone to the highest position. His life shows us the complexities of this military society and the incredible opportunities it could offer to those with talent, ambition, and a little bit of luck. This essay will explore the legendary life of this incredible sultan. We will journey back to his early days, tracing his path from a young slave to a powerful Mamluk warrior. We will uncover the story of how he skillfully navigated the dangerous politics of the Mamluk court to become sultan. We will marvel at his great achievements in architecture, his leadership in battle, and his support for culture. Finally, we will understand why Sultan Qaitbay is not just a figure from history books, but an enduring symbol of strength, piety, and cultural brilliance, whose legacy continues to inspire. His story is a window into the soul of late Mamluk Egypt. The story of Sultan Qaitbay begins far from the sun-drenched lands of Egypt. He was born sometime around the year 1423 in the mountainous region of Circassia, which is located in the North Caucasus. This area was known for its fierce and independent people, renowned for their martial skills and striking appearance. His original name is lost to history, as was common for those who were taken from their homes at a young age. He was born into a world of tribal loyalties and constant conflict, a harsh environment that likely prepared him for the difficult life that lay ahead. He was just a boy, not yet a teenager, when his life was changed forever. As was a common practice in that era, young boys from the Caucasus region were often sold into slavery. This was not always a story of pure tragedy in the context of the Mamluk system. It was seen as a path to a better life, a chance for advancement that was impossible to find at home. Slave traders would purchase or capture boys who showed promise, looking for strength, intelligence, and good looks. Qaitbay, being a handsome and strong young man, fit the profile perfectly. Sometime in the 1430s, he was purchased by a slave merchant and began the long and arduous journey that would eventually lead him to the bustling heart of the Mamluk Empire, Cairo. The journey itself was a formidable test of survival. Young boys were transported across vast distances, often on foot or by sea, facing disease, harsh weather, and the cruelty of their captors. It was a brutal filtering process, and only the strongest and most resilient survived. When Qaitbay finally arrived in Cairo, he was a stranger in a strange land, surrounded by a new language, a new culture, and a new religion. He was sold in the slave market, a place of noise, chaos, and uncertainty. It was here that his destiny took a pivotal turn. He was purchased for the household of the reigning Sultan, a sign that his qualities had been recognized. He was bought by Sultan Al-Ashraf Qaitbay for the relatively high price of 50 dinars. This purchase marked the end of his old life and the beginning of his new one. He was no longer a Circassian boy, he was now a Mamluk, a member of a unique military caste that ruled Egypt. He was brought into the barracks of the Cairo citadel, the very center of Mamluk power. Here, his formal education and training would begin. The boy from Circassia was now on a clear, albeit difficult path. He had taken the first crucial step on the long ladder of Mamluk society, a ladder he would one day climb all the way to the top. Upon entering the barracks of the Cairo citadel, Qaitbay's life was transformed. The Mamluk system was a highly structured and rigorous military academy. The young recruits, known as Mamluks, were no longer considered ordinary slaves. They were the property of the Sultan, and they were being trained for a life of elite military service and governance. The first step was conversion to Islam, followed by intensive instruction in the Arabic language and the Quran. This was a crucial part of their assimilation. They were being molded into a new identity, one loyal not to their old tribes or families, but to their master, the Sultan, and to the Mamluk Brotherhood. The training was incredibly demanding, both physically and mentally. From dawn until dusk, the young Mamluks were drilled in the arts of war. They became expert horsemen, mastering complex cavalry maneuvers and learning to fight with the lance, the sword, and the bow and arrow. The Mamluk cavalry was famous throughout the world for its skill and discipline, and this reputation was forged in the harsh training grounds of the citadel. Qaitbay, with his natural strength and intelligence, excelled in this environment. He quickly distinguished himself as a talented and dedicated soldier, earning the respect of his peers and the attention of his commanders. But Mamluk education was not just about fighting. The recruits were also taught court etiquette, administration, and Islamic law. They were being prepared not only to be soldiers, but also to be future governors, administrators, and leaders of the empire. This comprehensive education was what made the Mamluk system so unique and effective. It created a class of men who were both fierce warriors and capable statesmen. Qaitbay absorbed all of these lessons. He learned the intricate dance of court politics, observing how power was won and lost, and how alliances were formed and broken within the competitive Mamluk hierarchy. After completing his rigorous training, Qaitbay was officially manumitted or freed and given a rank in the Sultan's personal guard. This was a significant moment. He was no longer a slave, but a free man and a member of the ruling elite. He served under several sultans, including Qaitbay, Jakmak, and Inal. With each passing year, he gained more experience, both on the battlefield and in the palace. He was promoted through the ranks, becoming an officer and then a higher-ranking commander or Amir. He was patient, observant, and politically astute, slowly building his power base and waiting for the right opportunity to present itself. His journey from a boy in the barracks to a powerful Amir was complete, but his ambition was far from satisfied. The Mamluk Sultanate, in the mid-15th century, was a place of constant political intrigue and power struggles. The path to the throne was not through hereditary succession. It was a prize to be won by the most powerful and cunning Mamluk Amir. After the death of Sultan Inal in 1461, the Sultanate entered a period of intense instability. A series of weak and short-lived sultans took the throne, each one manipulated or quickly overthrown by rival Mamluk factions. Qaitbay, by this time a senior and respected Amir, watched these events unfold with a careful eye. He had built a reputation for being loyal, competent, and level-headed, which made him a respected figure among the different Mamluk groups. When Sultan Inal became seriously ill in early 1461, he abdicated in favor of his eldest son Ahmad, who had already served as Emir al-Hajj, commander of the pilgrimage to Mecca. However, Ahmad never gained the support of the powerful Mamluk emirs. Within only 4 months, a coalition of rival Mamluk factions, including the Zahiris, Ashrafis, Nasiris, and even members of his own Muayyadi faction, forced him to abdicate. They elevated Saif al-Din Khushqadam to the throne instead. During the chaotic reign of Sultan Khushqadam and the even more tumultuous rules of his successors Qaitbay and Timurbuga, the state was in disarray. The royal treasury was empty, the emirs were fighting amongst themselves, and the authority of the Sultan was almost non-existent. The Mamluk elite realized that this situation could not continue. They needed a strong leader who could restore order, unite the factions, and bring stability back to the empire. The leading emirs began to look for a candidate who could command respect and effectively govern. Their eyes eventually fell upon Qaitbay. In 1468, the reigning Sultan, Timurbuga, who was actually a friend and associate of Qaitbay, was deposed by a powerful faction of emirs. The conspirators, having seized power, needed to choose a new sultan. They initially did not have Qaitbay in mind, but as they debated, his name emerged as the most viable compromise candidate. He was seen as a man of integrity and experience, someone who was not overly ambitious and could be controlled. They offered him the throne, believing he would be a puppet ruler. This was a grave miscalculation on their part. Qaitbay, who was over 50 years old at the time, was far more shrewd and capable than they imagined. Qaitbay initially hesitated, a classic political move to show humility and a lack of overt ambition. However, he eventually accepted the burden of the sultanate. On becoming sultan, he took the regnal name Al-Ashraf, meaning the most noble. He moved swiftly to consolidate his power. He did not immediately purge his rivals, but instead used a combination of diplomacy, strategic appointments, and financial rewards to win their loyalty or neutralize their influence. He quickly proved that he was no one's puppet. He was a master of Mamluk politics, and he used his decades of experience to outmaneuver all who challenged him, establishing a firm grip on power that would last for nearly 3 decades. Once his power was secure, Sultan Qaitbay embarked on one of the most ambitious and, honestly, extensive building programs in Mamluk history. His reign is really defined by its architectural splendor, and his name is attached to some of the most beautiful Islamic monuments ever created. Qaitbay was not just a patron who funded these projects. He took a keen personal interest in them, and his influence resulted in a distinct architectural style that is now known as the style of Qaitbay. This style, is characterized by its elegance, refined proportions, and incredibly intricate decorative details, including elaborate stone carvings, geometric patterns, and masterful use of colored marble. His buildings were a statement of power, piety, and cultural sophistication. The heart of his building program was in Cairo, the Mamluk capital. He restored and built mosques, madrasas, those are schools, mausoleums, and public fountains, or sabils, throughout the city. His most famous monument in Cairo is his funerary complex in the Northern Cemetery, often called the Cemetery of the Mamluks. Completed in 1474, this complex is widely regarded as a masterpiece of Mamluk architecture. It includes a mosque, a madrasa, a mausoleum, and a Sabil Kutab, which is a public fountain with a Quranic school for boys above it. The dome of his mausoleum, with its intricate carved, geometric and floral patterns, is honestly one of the most iconic sights in historic Cairo and a high point of Islamic architectural art. Qaitbay's building activities were not limited to Cairo. He understood the importance of projecting his power and piety throughout his empire. He commissioned major restoration projects for the most important holy sites in Islam. In Mecca, he sponsored the rebuilding of the madrasa next to the Grand Mosque. More significantly, in Jerusalem, he ordered a massive restoration of the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. he built a beautiful public fountain, the Sabil of Qaitbay, on the Temple Mount, which still stands today, bearing his name and titles for all to see. These projects really reinforced his image as a devout Muslim ruler and the guardian of Islam's holiest places. These building projects served multiple purposes. They were, of course, acts of religious devotion meant to earn divine favor. They were also a form of public works, providing jobs for thousands of craftsmen, artisans, and laborers, which helped stimulate the economy. Most importantly, they were a powerful form of political propaganda. Each new mosque, fort, or fountain was inscribed with Qaitbay's name and titles, stamping his authority on the landscape. They were a constant, visible reminder to his subjects and his rivals of his power, his wealth, and his enduring legacy. Today, these magnificent structures are what keep the memory of the builder Sultan alive. Sultan Qaitbay's patronage extended far beyond architecture. His reign witnessed a flourishing of the arts and crafts, making it, a period of great cultural vibrancy. The Sultan himself was a connoisseur of fine objects and supported workshops that produced exquisite luxury goods. This era saw the production of some of the finest Mamluk-era metalwork, with intricate inlays of silver and gold on brass ewers, basins, and candlestick holders. Glassware, especially enameled and gilded mosque lamps, reached a new level of artistry. The Sultan also commissioned beautifully illuminated copies of the Quran, which were masterpieces of calligraphy and miniature painting, reflecting his personal piety and his role as a patron of Islamic learning. The court of Qaitbay was a center of intellectual life. He surrounded himself with scholars, poets, and historians. The Sultan enjoyed their company and supported their work, understanding that a great ruler must also be a patron of knowledge. One of the most important historians of the period, Ibn Taghribirdi, was a contemporary of Qaitbay, and his chronicles provide us with invaluable information about the Sultan's reign. By supporting these scholars, Qaitbay ensured that the story of his time would be recorded for posterity. This intellectual environment fostered a climate of learning and cultural exchange, preserving and building upon the vast scholarly traditions of the Islamic world. Qaitbay also understood the critical importance of trade and commerce to the health of his empire. The Mamluk Sultanate was strategically located at the crossroads of major trade routes between the east and the west. Spices from India and the Far East, textiles from Persia, and other valuable goods passed through Mamluk ports like Alexandria and Damietta on their way to Europe. Qaitbay took measures to protect and encourage this trade. He maintained good relations with European trading powers like Venice and Genoa, and he invested in the infrastructure that supported commerce, such as building wicalas, caravanserais or urban inns, where merchants could stay and store their goods safely. This focus on commerce brought great wealth to the Sultanate, which in turn funded Qaitbay's massive building projects and his powerful army. However, it was also a source of tension. The Sultan imposed state monopolies on certain goods, like spices, to maximize revenue for the treasury. While this was profitable in the short term, it sometimes created friction with both foreign merchants and local traders. Despite these challenges, the commercial activity during Qaitbay's reign helped to sustain the empire's economy and contributed to the overall sense of prosperity and stability that characterized his rule, making his era a true golden age for Mamluk culture. Sultan Qaitbay was not just a builder and a patron. He was, first and foremost, a Mamluk, a soldier king. He came to power through his military skill and reputation, and he spent much of his reign defending the borders of his empire against formidable threats. The greatest of these threats came from the north, from the rapidly expanding Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans, under their powerful Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, were pushing southward, encroaching on territories that the Mamluks considered within their sphere of influence in Anatolia and Syria. This set the stage for a long and complex rivalry between the two great Sunni Muslim powers. Qaitbay was a shrewd military strategist and diplomat. He understood that a full-scale war with the Ottomans would be devastating for both sides. For many years, he managed to maintain a precarious peace through a combination of diplomacy, shows of force, and by supporting smaller buffer states between the two empires. However, tensions continued to rise. The conflict finally erupted into open warfare in 1485. The war, fought largely in southern Anatolia, lasted for 6 years. The Mamluk army, under the personal leadership of Qaitbay's trusted commanders, fought bravely and skillfully. Qaitbay, though now in his 60s, sometimes traveled with his army to boost morale, demonstrating his continued commitment as a military leader. The Mamluk forces managed to achieve several significant victories against the Ottomans, surprising many who believed the Ottoman army to be invincible. They successfully defended their territories and even captured some Ottoman commanders. The war ended in 1491 with a peace treaty that largely restored the pre-war borders. For the Mamluks, this was a major victory. Qaitbay had successfully stood up to the mighty Ottoman Empire and stopped their southward expansion, at least for a time. This achievement greatly enhanced his prestige both at home and abroad. He had proven that the Mamluk military was still a force to be reckoned with. Beyond the Ottoman threat, Qaitbay also had to contend with other security challenges. He dealt with rebellious Bedouin tribes within his own territory, ensuring the safety of pilgrimage and trade routes. He also kept a watchful eye on the Portuguese, who were beginning to explore the sea routes around Africa, threatening the Mamluk monopoly on the spice trade. Qaitbay's effective military leadership and his strategic foresight were crucial in maintaining the security and integrity of the Mamluk Sultanate. He was the guardian of his realm, and his success in this role was fundamental to the stability and prosperity of his long reign. One of Sultan Qaitbay's most famous and enduring structures stands not in Cairo but on the Mediterranean coast, in the city of Alexandria. This is the magnificent citadel of Qaitbay, a formidable defensive fortress built on the very spot where the legendary Pharos Lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, once stood. The lighthouse had been gradually destroyed by a series of earthquakes between the 11th and 14th centuries, and by the time Qaitbay visited Alexandria in 1477, its ruins lay scattered. Seeing the strategic importance of this location at the entrance to Alexandria's harbour and recognizing the growing threat from the sea, the Sultan ordered the construction of a new fortress. The construction of the citadel was a major undertaking. It was built between 1477 and 1479, using some of the stones from the ruins of the ancient lighthouse. The fortress was designed as a state-of-the-art military installation for its time. It had high, thick walls, defensive towers, and positions for cannons, a relatively new technology that was becoming increasingly important in warfare. The citadel was not just a military outpost, it also contained a mosque and living quarters for the soldiers and their commander. Qaitbay himself reportedly visited the site during its construction, a testament to the project's importance to him. The primary purpose of the citadel of Alexandria was to defend Egypt's northern coast. The Sultan was concerned about several potential threats from the sea. The Ottoman navy was growing in strength, and there was always the possibility of attack from Christian powers based in Europe, such as the Knights of St. John on the island of Rhodes. The fortress served as a powerful deterrent. Its commanding position ensured that no hostile ship could enter Alexandria's main harbour without coming under fire. It was a clear and powerful statement that the Mamluk Sultanate was prepared to defend its shores and its commercial interests. Today, the citadel of Qaitbay is one of Alexandria's most popular landmarks and a symbol of the city. While it has been restored and altered over the centuries, it remains a powerful reminder of its builder. The fortress perfectly encapsulates the key aspects of Qaitbay's rule: His concern for the security of his empire, his strategic vision, and his talent for creating buildings that were both functional and beautiful. Just as his mosques and schools proclaimed his piety and cultural leadership, his fortresses proclaimed his strength and his solemn duty as the protector of his people and his land against all threats. Sultan Qaitbay's long and eventful reign came to an end in 1496. He died at the age of around 80, having ruled Egypt for over 28 years. His death marked the end of an era. The sultans who followed him lacked his skill, his vision, and his longevity. The internal stability he had worked so hard to maintain began to crumble, and the external threats he had successfully held at bay grew stronger. Just over 2 decades after his death, in 1517, the Ottoman Sultan Selim I conquered Egypt, bringing the Mamluk Sultanate to an end. Qaitbay's reign is therefore often seen as the last great chapter in the Mamluk story, a final period of brilliance before the fall. His importance in Egyptian history is immense. He is remembered as the Builder Sultan, and his architectural legacy is unparalleled. His buildings are not just beautiful relics of the past. They are a living part of the urban fabric of cities like Cairo and Jerusalem. They continue to be used as places of worship and community gathering, and they attract tourists and scholars from all over the world. His distinct architectural style represents the pinnacle of Mamluk artistic achievement. Through his buildings, Qaitbay's name has achieved a kind of immortality, forever associated with beauty, elegance, and piety. What can we learn from the life of Sultan Qaitbay today? His story is a powerful lesson in leadership. He demonstrates that a successful ruler must be multifaceted. He was not just a soldier or just a politician. He was a warrior, a diplomat, a builder, a patron of the arts, and a guardian of faith and commerce. He understood that true strength came not just from military might, but from a stable economy, a vibrant culture, and a sense of justice and order. He successfully balanced the need for a strong defense with the importance of investing in infrastructure and the well-being of his people. Ultimately, the story of Qaitbay is a testament to the potential for human achievement. Even from the most humble of beginnings, he was a boy sold into slavery who rose to become one of the most powerful and respected rulers of his time. His life shows that with talent, discipline, ambition, and a bit of good fortune, it is possible to overcome incredible obstacles and leave a lasting and positive mark on the world. In the bustling streets of modern Cairo, as people walk past the fountains he built and pray in the mosques he commissioned, the legacy of Sultan al-Ashraf Qaitbay is not just a memory, it is a living presence.